Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. This is episode 37. It is Tuesday, April 8th. We've got a pretty good episode planned ahead today. There won't be too much to talk about. I don't anticipate this being a long one, but we've got some big news in terms of mainly the WBC. Lots of purse bids going on, lots of titles being vacated, fights being ordered. The biggest of which, and is going to be the bulk of today's episode, is the 175-pound division concerning Dmitry Bivol, David Benavidez, and Artur Beterbiev, and what is going on there. We've also got WBC ordering their next lightweight title fight between Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda. Some UFC 317 rumors, some other WBC stuff, some title fights being booked, lots of stuff to dig into, and let's just get it going with this light heavyweight division. So, obviously, going into this, uh, going into the Beterbiev Bivol 2, it felt like the division was in a really good spot where we had David Benavidez, David Morrell, which just took place. David Benavidez won that, and Dmitry Bivol beat Artur Beterbiev. Before both of those fights, it felt pretty clear what was going to happen. Winners of those fights are going to meet next. Now, if Beterbiev were to have beaten Bivol, it would have been very clear. Okay, he's beaten him twice, no need for a third fight there. Let's just go into the next one with David Benavidez. But Bivol beat Beterbiev. Now, let me say this. Bivol beat Beterbiev more convincingly than Beterbiev beat Bivol. I feel like we can all agree on that. Because after the first fight, the reason why we had to do a rematch is that so many people thought Bivol won that fight. I personally think that it was a draw. I'm not mad at people saying Beterbiev won. I'm not mad at people saying Bivol won. Beterbiev got the nod. A lot of people thought Bivol won. It made sense to run it back. Heading into the second fight, Bivol won, and I don't think that a lot of people were saying Beterbiev won that fight. I think most, if not everyone, agreed Bivol won it. So it felt pretty clear, okay, well, it's supposed to be Bivol Benavidez. And I would not be mad at that at all. However, part of it is also Beterbiev gave Bivol the rematch. And it kind of feels like it's fair enough for Bivol to give Beterbiev the rematch just because both of their fights have been so incredible and so competitive that it's one apiece. And when Beterbiev won, he gave Bivol the rematch. And now Bivol's got the titles, he should probably give Beterbiev the rematch. And because we now have that decision to make, what was once a very easy and clear plan for the future of 175 became very unsure. Is it going to be Bivol Benavidez? Is it going to be Bivol Beterbiev 3? Where does Callum Smith factor into all of this? Who is Beterbiev going to fight if it's not going to be Bivol? There are so many questions. Is Beterbiev going to retire? Is he going to move up? Does Bivol fight Benavidez? Does he vacate any of the belts? Well, we now know what's going to happen. Bivol has vacated. We first of all, apparently Bivol and Benavidez were to head to purse bids this week. It had already been ordered. We knew that. They were supposed to have purse bids, I believe, on Wednesday. 2 days before, I guess on Monday, they announced that Bivol he's relinquished his WBC belt. So he's no longer WBC champion. He's no longer undisputed. And David Benavidez, who was interim champion, has now been elevated to WBC world champion. As for the reason for this, it's been made clear that Bivol is seeking the Beterbiev rematch. Is this surprising? No, not necessarily. We do know that Eddie Hearn has been saying, listen, His Excellency has given Bivol the path to become undisputed, and whatever he wants next is what we'll do. So it sounded like Bivol isn't even the one who was making the decision. It sounded like they were waiting to see what His Excellency said. And His Excellency before had said, I want Benavidez to fight the winner. After the fight, he said he wanted a trilogy, and it seems like they've officially said, yeah, we're going to do the trilogy. We're hearing they're planning to do that in October, and it will be for the WBO, WBA, and IBF titles, not the WBC. So this is not terribly surprising. Benavidez, yeah, he does get left out of the undisputed like he did with Canelo, but this is different. And this becomes the question everyone's saying, did Dmitry Bivol duck David Benavidez? The answer is no. I do not believe he did. And there's a few reasons there. One, Bivol is giving the trilogy back to Beterbiev. Beterbiev gave him his rematch. It's only fair Dmitry does the same thing. So he's doing that, as a good opponent, I guess you could say. Also, this is His Excellency. What he wants for Riyadh season. He wants the rematch. They're the ones that are going to pay them the big money, not in PBC or Matchroom. So they're going to take that opportunity, and they're going to do whatever he has in store for them. They're going to listen to Turkey. And it's a little bit different. When Canelo ducked David Benavidez, it wasn't him vacating the belt so he didn't have to fight him. He was holding on to the belt and intentionally finding ways and getting Benavidez not and making it so that Benavidez doesn't get his title shot. He was not only ducking him, but he was cheating him out of a world title shot. Bivol's not doing this. He's like, yeah, I don't want to fight Benavidez right now. He'll probably go into that fight after this one if he wins. The winner of Bivol Benavidez 3 and whoever Benavidez fight, or Bivol Beterbiev, sorry, there's so many B's, will probably fight the winner of Benavidez and what should be Callum Smith. But I think that Bivol will go into that fight, and he's not going to hold the belt hostage. He knows, okay, I'm going to hold up Benavidez here. I'm not ducking him. I still want him to be able to have his world title shot. If they want me to fight him for the WBC, but I want to go fight Beterbiev, I'm not going to hold the WBC hostage. I'm going to let him fight it. He can be world champion. I'll get it back later. So I think that there's nothing wrong with what Bivol is doing here. Benavidez himself even said that he's fine fighting Callum Smith next. He's fine letting Bivol and Beterbiev get their trilogy. So I see nothing wrong with this plan. If they had done Bivol Benavidez, I wouldn't have complained either. I do understand the notion of, we've already seen Bivol Beterbiev twice. I'd rather see something else new, and I was kind of in that boat. I probably would prefer to see Bivol Benavidez next. It's just that it also leaves out the Beterbiev part. Like, oh man, he kind of does deserve it. I really, of all those three fights, we've seen Bivol and Beterbiev. I want to see Beterbiev and Benavidez. Now, I don't know if we'll get that just because of, they both have to be winning in that case. So if Beterbiev does beat Bivol this third time around, which I don't think that he will, then it'll be him versus David Benavidez. And should that happen, my goodness, what a war that would be. But that's for a later day. So as for this topic, no, I do not think Dmitry Bivol beat or ducked David Benavidez. I think that he's taking the fight that makes more sense for his career, for his financial sake. And I think that Benavidez is okay with it. Benavidez is still going to get his title shot. In fact, he already is the WBC world champion. He just got elevated. As for the email champion stuff, I mean, it's whatever. I think that he should be remain interim champion or number one contender for the belt. So whenever they decide to rebook that for the vacant title, he'll be in line for that fight and he'll get that fight. But I don't think he should automatically get upgraded to champion. It's whatever, though. They've done this for a while. They're going to keep doing it. It's no big deal. As for what's next for both, we know it's going to be Bivol Beterbiev 3 in October. David Benavidez, there doesn't seem to be a lot of options for him. The main option being Callum Smith. I think that Dave Morrell is still probably the fifth guy at 175, and Benavidez just beat him. So it really makes sense for him to do Callum Smith, who just had a great win over Joshua Buatsi. Callum Smith is also WBO interim champion, so that would make I don't know if that would still be on the line in this case, but regardless, it's a fantastic fight. It makes sense for what's next. That's definitely what they're going to pursue. They say that Benavidez is going to return this summer. Samson Lukowicz, his promoter, said that he's going to then fight the winner of Bivol Beterbiev 3. And looking at the WBC rankings, obviously champion is Benavidez. Number 1 is Artur Beterbiev. That's not who it's going to be. 2 is Morrell. It won't be that. Albert Ramirez is number 3. So it would be Benavidez or Ramirez if the WBC were to order anything, most likely. But I don't think that that's going to happen. I think it's just going to be Benavidez Smith, which is the best course of action. But you know what? It looks like there is another plan in place for the 175 division. You know, we had semifinals earlier this year, and then it seemed like, oh, we're going to the final. Kind of seems like, okay, I guess we're back to semifinals. But, I'm just looking forward to seeing some new fights go on in this division, and Bivol Beterbiev 3 is going to be awesome. I'm not mad at it at all, and Benavidez Smith will also be great, and then it'll just make the fight between the winners of those even bigger. So, good stuff ahead. Further on with the WBC, we're going to talk about their other stuff. So, they've officially Stevenson, William Zepeda. I think this makes the most sense for both. If you look at Shakur, he needs to be in unifications most realistically. Tank is busy. He won't fight Keyshawn. He's also busy. And Loma's injured until he has to fight the winner of Murataya Abulayev. As far as that, who's the best guy in the division who doesn't have a belt? It's William Zepeda. So it's going to be Shakur William Zepeda. I'm not mad at that at all. Zepeda's the WBC interim champion. And this is a fight that a few months ago I would have been way more pumped for. But after seeing Zepeda's performances with Tevin Farmer and what kind of fighter Farmer is and what kind of fighter Shakur is, it's going to be hard to see Zepeda win more than 2 or 3 rounds against Shakur. Shakur is going to outbox him for days. And I love Zepeda. I think he's really fun, but he's almost like a gimmick fighter. He can throw a lot of punches, but how many of those are really effective? How many of those is he going to land on Shakur? On Shakur, he won't land any of them. So, we're going to see what, how this fight goes, but I think this should be a pretty easy victory for Shakur. But it's the fight that should be made for both, so I'm not mad at it at all. I'm glad it's happening, or should be happening. Some other stuff, they had 2 purse bids canceled. Diego Pacheco has pulled out of the Christian and Billy WBC interim title talks. This is very unfortunate. That was going to be a fantastic fight. 68-pound division. So I am upset it's not happening, but I'm not surprised either. It seems like Pacheco is going to pursue a Trevor McCumbee fight, which I have no objections to. McCumbee had a great performance against Caleb Plant. I think it's a good fight for Pacheco. They may not want to risk throwing him in there with him when, he's just still on the build-up. And Bully's ready for the title. I don't know if Pacheco is quite yet. And I think that him and McCumbee is still a good fight that he probably wins. I would prefer to see Pacheco and Billy, but it's whatever. This is now the second guy to pull out of purse bids with Pacheco, for Billy. As for what's next, I heard some people say it'll probably be Luka Plantic that gets pulled in. I hope that he'll take the fight. And I just want to see Christian and Billy get active again, man, because he had such an active year in 2024, and he's just been trying to get a big fight lined up, and nobody wants to fight him. So hopefully we get to see him and Canelo in the ring next year, and Pacheco as well. But, yeah, I was disappointed to see that happen. And then also you had the Rocky Hernandez, Mark Magsayo purse bid that was supposed to be this week as well. That got delayed 1 week. So it's not canceled, but it's been delayed. That one, I believe, is between Matchroom and PBC. That's a really good fight, I think. I think that fight makes a lot of sense for the 130-pound division. I'm looking forward to seeing that go down. And hopefully this doesn't mean too much bad news, and we still see that one going down. But Rocky Hernandez is certainly due his title shot, and I think that Magsayo is the perfect opponent for an eliminator. And the winner of this would be mandatory for Oshaki Foster, whoever ends up being the champion at that point. So a UFC 317 International Fight Week announcement is due to come out quite soon, I think. Probably before 315 we'll have that for sure. In next few weeks we'll get it, and we've been wondering, what is this fight going to be? It's got to be something big. At first we were hearing, could it be John Jones, Tom Aspinall? It's becoming clear that's not what it's going to be. Could it be Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria? Well, probably not going to be that. We're now hearing about 3 big fights that could be on the card. We have a lot more that we've heard about, but these are the 3 that we're hearing, main, co-main potential. So we're hearing, and this is just a rumor, that Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev and Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France are both signed for 317 as the main and co-main event. DDP Khamzat would be for the middleweight title, and Pantoja KKF would be for the flyweight title. And I love both those fights. I mean, Pantoja's run through the whole flyweight division, so I'm not mad at Kai getting the title shot. I think this should be a really fun fight. And then as for DDP Khamzat, that's the clear fight to make next. I'm a little bit skeptical of Khamzat fighting in the U.S. Is he allowed to? We know he's had some visa issues, but I'm guessing this means they've gotten that cleared out of the way or they're working on it. I think that's a brilliant fight to headline 317. Is it the biggest fight in the UFC? No, but it's one of the best, I think. And Khamzat, has the potential to be a big star. So I'm glad that we're going to get this fight finally, and I'm not mad at this headlining International Fight Week at all, especially when you have Pantoja Kara-France as the co-main as well. We're also hearing that Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria could be fighting on this card as well. Now, we did see that got leaked. We don't know how legit that is. I love that fight. I think that's crazy they're booking that. But if it is on 317, because honestly, this could headline the 318 card, wherever that is. I don't know if they've announced it yet, but the July one, that could really be a pay-per-view headliner without even having a title fight. The question of putting it on this card, if they do, where does it fall on the card? It could be the main event. It genuinely could and maybe should be the main event over DDP Khamzat, over Pantoja Kara-France. Like, how crazy is this card going to be? I don't know if they should do that. I think they may want to spread it out a little bit. Personally, I would put Ilia Charles as the main event. I don't even know if I'd put it as the main event for pay-per-view because it doesn't have a title, but it really should be. It should be at least co-main event. So I would probably put that in July, not to put all your eggs into one basket. Also because we don't really know who's going to be headlining July. I mean, we know it'll be 205 in August. We know 185 seems like 185 and 125 will be in June, as will 135. 145 is Saturday. 155 I guess could be in July if they decide, if Islam waits until May and sees that, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to fight, Jack Della Maddalena wins and Islam's like, all right, bet I'm moving up to welterweight. Then we could see in July Ilia and Charles fight for the vacant lightweight title or whoever that could be. Could it be Armin or Gaethje, whoever? We could really see that happen, and I wouldn't be mad at that. So I'm starting to think maybe that's the plan, but if they are planning to do all 3 of these mega fights on the same card, man, is that going to be a special day on June 28th. Very much looking forward to that. Okay, what else? Richardson Hitchens, George Kambosos is apparently set for theater at MSG in New York City. We were hearing June 21st. I guess the date changed. I don't really care. June 14th. I like, that way it won't clash with some other stuff. We know Tank Roach is supposed to be on that night as well. I think that this is a very stupid fight, but also a good fight, if that makes sense. Where I think the actual fight could be okay. Hitchens is easily going to win. He's going to outbox Kambosos, but I think it'll be a fun build up, and I think that it could be. They've got a good bit of trash talk going. They've had some fun action on Twitter, but I really hate Kambosos getting all these title opportunities. It's nuts how many he gets just because he's got a big name in Australia. He really does not deserve to be fighting for this. He's had one fight against 140, which was Jake Wiley, who he didn't even stop. I thought he looked okay, but I don't understand how he keeps on getting these shots just based off name value. But you know what? Fair play to him. He's had a very well managed career. But uh, yeah, it's whatever. This will give Hitchens the opportunity to headline in New York City in his hometown, do a big crowd, have a big fight, be the winner, be the A side, and it'll be better for his career, I guess. As for Kambosos, I don't know. I mean, he's still getting his title shot. I don't really know what's left for him. Not that he's washed or anything, but he's just not even like he shouldn't even really be fighting for world titles anymore. That Teofimo Lopez fight, I can't like that totally set up his entire career. Where that one lucky night has made him this top of the division, top of the money list, and he's getting so many great opportunities, and he's not even winning them or looking good at the ones that he does win. So it's crazy, but you know what? Fair play to him. KSI is potentially retiring. That's what it seems, isn't it? Yeah. So he said for a while, first of all, going into the Tommy Fury fight, he was saying that may be his last fight. And after he lost, it seemed like, maybe it is. And he's saying, no, I do want to come back. It was a little bit we weren't sure. And then he said, I do want to come back. And then they took a while and they got it set up for August. He's going to do a 2v1 in a very stupid fight. That fell through. He got injured. Then he's like, okay, I'm coming back in March and fighting Dylan Dannett, or I'm going to fight the soccer player. That was awful. Then they switched out to Dylan Dannett, a good save. And then, I get sick this time. It's like, okay. And now he's saying, I don't know if I ever will fight again, because there is no need for him to fight realistically. If he comes back for a Jake Paul fight, I'd like. The problem with him is that he won't walk into a Jake Paul fight. He's gonna want 2 to 3 fights to prepare, which I hate, but I do understand it in a way. And he said for a while, he's like, it's not even always up to me if I can find. To be honest, I like Misfits, but they really have not built out a lot of stars to carry on after KSI. They don't have any big pay per view names. Realistically, they don't. The only pay per views they've done without KSI are their last two, in which you had KSI on really is the main event in a concert, which was stupid. And then they had a huge card where they put all their good fighters on one card, and the main event was Gibb versus Slim, which was like the most highly demanded fight outside of KSI Jake Paul for YouTube boxing. And I don't even know how well that one sold, but I hope it did decently well. I was excited for it. I enjoyed it. But yeah, it is a little bit. I don't know how much KSI really wants to be doing anymore, especially when he keeps getting these injuries. It's kind of a sign. I bet he will fight again one day, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. So it's very interesting. But yeah, moving on, Wardley and Miller got into it at their presser. This was yesterday morning. They had their announcement presser at Ipswich, and it's pretty funny. Jerome Miller was like, I'm going to slap the shit out of you. And then his slap, if you've seen it, is very funny. He just kind of nudges W. Wardley's face. Jerome Miller is very funny. He's very chaotic. He's a really good trash talker, and he showed up in Wardley's rivals team's jersey, which I thought was pretty fun. He and Wardley definitely got into it, which I was both surprised and not surprised at, just because I didn't think about it. But once it happened, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Miller would go after him. I saw Frank Warren was not a fan of it, which I get that you really shouldn't be doing that stuff. It's immature, but it's funny. It sells the fight, and I cannot wait for this fight. I think it's going to be awesome. And to see that Jerome Miller is really into it, he really believes he's going to win. That just makes it way more exciting. He's not just here for a paycheck. He wants that title. So, yeah, it should be a good one. The British Boxing Board of Control are going to make a decision soon, I think on Wednesday, on how to handle the David Adelaide Jamie TKV controversy, what they should do next to move forward. So obviously they had their fight on Saturday as the co-main event to Joe Joyce, Philip Hrgovic. It was not the best fight. In fact, it was a pretty hard fight to watch. It was not entertaining.
So we don't really know what their plan is. As for what's next, I think it'll probably just be a rematch, which kind of sucks, but also doesn't because TKV does kind of deserve that. He was probably ahead on the cards, and the shot wasn't that hurt him, wasn't the one that put him out, but it definitely affected him. And I don't know if he would have been on skates like he was had he not taken that shot. So you do feel for him. And I do think that he probably does deserve a rematch. It's just that, man, those first 5 rounds were so hard to watch. It was a great build up and it was very exciting, and I was really looking forward to it. But it really was not delivering until that knockout. So I don't know what to do going forward with it. It does seem like we'll probably just get a rematch, which I'm okay with, and I assume that'll be what happened. I know that Boxer lodged a protest with them. I don't know if they were asking for a disqualification or no contest. I think that that's silly. I think Adelaide should still keep the victory, but probably just do an immediate rematch for the British title. Joshua Buatsi, when asked, if he wants to fight the winner of Ben Whitaker, Liam Cameron too, said, if they come looking for him, he said, I'm not hard to find. You know, I think that is honestly a pretty big money fight for him. Ben Whitaker is a bit of a star, and he brings in some stuff, and that could be good for Buatsi's profile. And it's also a fight that Buatsi wins right now for sure. So I understand why he's interested in it. I don't blame him. I hope that he's not taking it too seriously. I hope that that's just him saying, like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't care. He should really be targeting the winner of Anthony Yard and Lyndon Arthur 3, which will likely be Lyndon, or excuse me, no, which will likely not be Lyndon Arthur, which will likely be Anthony Yard. We know him and Buatsi have had a history. We wanted them to fight for so long. And it seemed like, I don't know if it's going to happen. Now that Buatsi's lost to Smith, I actually think it puts him and Yard in the same degree now a little bit more. And after Yard wins, he's going to have more confidence finally after fighting another bigger name, or at least a decent name. And from there, we can get the Buatsi Yard fight finally. And I love that fight. I think that's what Buatsi should be focusing on next. I know he was just answering the question, but I really do not have any interest in seeing Buatsi versus Whitaker, and surely not Buatsi versus Cameron. But we'll see. I hope it's Buatsi Yard next. Talia Santos is out of the flyweight tournament for PFL. Higo versus Reddinghouse has been up to the bantamweight main event. This will be on Friday. I just mentioned this because it seems like PFL has had a lot of pause in the tournament already, and I know it's hard. You've got 64 fighters in there, I believe it is. And it's a lot of names to keep intact, and they announce it a month or two before, and stuff happens, but you just look at it and it feels like every tournament has had so many events, so many changes to it. We're not going to have any of the alternate fights actually take place. All the alternate fighters are having to be used in these fights just because stuff keeps on going wrong. And this is just the first round. The first round hasn't even started yet for most of the fights. What's going to happen when we're waiting to go into the finals and someone gets injured? Like it's just you just get so anxious when you're doing a tournament that's all spread out about stuff going wrong in between, and stuff is going wrong before it even starts. So who knows? And Tyler Santos sucks because she was one of the bigger names in this tournament. She was supposed to be the headliner, and now she's out. So that's unfortunate. Joe Pyfer versus Kelvin Gastelum is being rebooked for 316. Yeah, so this was meant to happen on Mexico City. I think it was Pyfer that got injured or sick or something last minute or missed weight. I can't remember, but something happened like day of the fight, and the fight got canceled. And for whatever reason they're supposed to be the coming event, and now it's like they will be rebooked for Newark on June 7th on the Dvalishvili O'Malley 2 undercard. I like this fight a lot. I think it's a pretty good one. And, that's not a bad turnaround at all. They're supposed to fight end of March, sit out for an extra 2 months, and glad that they're still moving forward with the same fight. Because UFC's had a lot of fights fall out recently, and it seems like they're trying to rebook a lot of those same fights for later, like they did with Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, or we're hoping they're doing. The Ring Magazine has announced a partnership with Wade. So the Wade Concept, if you don't know him on YouTube, he is awesome. He just had his fight on Misfits, which was crazy, but yeah. So I guess that he's gonna now be doing a podcast on the ring like 3 times a week, which I'm excited for. He's one of the best combat sports YouTubers out there, maybe the best. But it is interesting because for a while he was mainly focused on just YouTube boxing. Since then he's moved away to do more UFC and pro boxing stuff. But him taking over the ring is interesting because I feel like most of his concept comes from Jake Paul, KSI, and some UFC stuff. Not all pro boxing. So it is curious to see how much he's going to be allowed to, cover what he wants to cover. It is run by the ring, so I don't know if they're saying you only can talk about pro boxing or if he's allowed to talk about MMA and YouTube boxing and stuff. So it remains to be seen, but very excited for that. That's sick. Lastly, Carlos Prache said that Kevin Holland accepted the fight before Ian Gary came in. So I don't know if this was meant to be for UFC 314 or if this was meant to be for UFC Kansas City, whatever they were planning. But they yeah, we don't really know what the plan was meant to be, but it seems like Kevin Holland, they sent him an offer, or he just volunteered and said, "Yeah, I'll do it," which I think is hilarious because people are saying they're going to feed Kevin Holland to Carlos Praches, and yeah, it seems like that was almost going to happen. Which I'm glad it's not because Praches carries a much better fight. I was going to say that was everything. I'm just now checking. There's some other stuff. I'm seeing now that apparently Edwin De Los Santos has pulled out of the Keyshawn Davis fight after not liking his offer. That's very disappointing, just because I feel like he's been out for so long, and that was a good fight for Keyshawn. They're not gonna have to find him a new opponent. I believe his date was meant to be June 6th or 7th, so we'll see who they bring in now. If they may have to push it back, but yeah, not too happy with De Los Santos pulling out of that one, just because he was getting a good opportunity to get in his title fight anyways, and I mean he's not taking any other fights, so why wait around? But yeah, other than that, just some good stuff. Bivol Benavidez is not happening, but that doesn't mean that Bivol ducked Benavidez. It just means that he's choosing the Beterbiev route because that's what His Excellency wants. That's what he wants, and that'll be in October. Benavidez will likely defend his WBC title in the summer. Shakur Zepeda looks likely. DDP Hamzat looks all but confirmed for 317. I think that'll get announced soon. Pantoja Kara France on there, and wherever Ilya Charles lands. And that's all I've got for today's episode. You know, a shorter one. We'll talk on Thursday, I think, and we'll look at the Eye of the Tiger card on Thursday night. You've got on Friday night the PFL card, and then on Saturday you'll have Jerome Ennis, Iman Stanionis, and a fantastic unification at welterweight. Very excited for that. 314, one of the best UFC cards in a while. Headlined by Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez and Michael Chandler, Paddy Pimblett in the main event. Fantastic fights on there. And then also a Pro Box TV card on Saturday night. So not a ton of action this weekend, but what we do have is quality stuff. Very excited. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back soon enough on Thursday, and peace out.